Hey, what is up, guys? I am Hippie, and I want to welcome you to the start of the Halloween 7-day Spook-Tacular. To start it off, I thought I'd tell you guys a pretty interesting story that just happened, well, not too long ago. It was September 18th. It was Thursday night. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. So my mom was over at my sister's house watching her kid. My dad was upstairs sleeping, and my brother was upstairs sleeping too. And if you give you a picture, our house is like a townhome, so there's 2 stories, and they're not too wide. And by the front door, I have this easy chair that I sit in, and I can watch TV and whatnot. But directly in my line of vision is also our sliding glass door that leads out to a kind of collective field out in the back that all the people can use and whatnot. So I'm just sitting there on YouTube, and I look back there, and I see some kind of light in the sky, and it kind of caught my eye a little bit, so I decided to go look at it, and I clearly see like a orange ball of light coming down. It's not like falling or anything, it's just slowly coming down out of the sky, and when it hits where the ground level would be, it just goes out. So I'm kind of intrigued by it, but I'm thinking it could have been a flare because we live right next to a place called Peterson Air Force Base, and I was figuring it could have been a road flare or an artillery flare or something like that. So I come back over and I sit down and I hear cars whizzing by the front because the front of our door leads straight to a road in here. So I hear the cars whizzing by, and I decide to get back up and look back outside. And over on the other side of the road out there, I see maybe 3 or 4 cop cars out there. So now I'm really intrigued. So I'm watching, and I see them start walking back towards the middle of the field, and then they head back to their cars and come back. And then they start setting up these huge, like, crime scene lights, but they're not facing inwards towards, like, a collective area. They're facing all outwards. So I can't really see anything. It's just kind of a big blinding light, all circles around it. And they're there for not even like 3 or 4 minutes. And they just pack them up and leave. Nothing to it. Nothing else I heard from that. We waited and watched on the news, and nothing. No news report of any crime scene or anything. So that's a little bit weird. And I decided to tell my mom about it, and that got us thinking again about something that she had told me not too long ago, about a year ago, about something that happened way back ago in her childhood. But I'm going to go ahead and let her explain that big long story now. Go ahead.
Hi everybody, this is Mom, and my story begins in 1977, 1978, when I was a little girl. We lived in East Detroit, Michigan. And my father decided that it was getting too crazy down there, so he was going to move my family, which was my stepfather, my mom, my 2 older brothers, and my 2 younger brothers, and myself, of course, to this little town called Alpena, Michigan. And it's just a little tiny town off of Lake Huron. They moved us out into the country to a farm. It was a working farm with all the animals. My father was a truck driver. He would come home on the weekends. And then we, as the children, had our chores to do, and we would run the farm. My father, it had to have been a weekend, and we all had this routine where we would get up in the morning, do our chores, go to school, come home. We had a certain bedtime, and I would say it was about spring, because school was still in, and I believe I was in the 4th grade, and I was going upstairs, and we have these 3 windows that face the woods out toward another Air Force base called Felt Collins Air Force Base, which was directly right in front of Piper Road. And I'm going upstairs, and out of the middle window of the 3 windows, I see this light, and it was not a helicopter, and it was not an airplane, and it was just right above the tree line. And I'm screaming for my father to come here and take a look at this. And my father wouldn't, and it wouldn't. You could see the lights blinking over a circular motion. Wasn't a very big object, didn't light up the sky, but I had not turned on the upstairs light yet. So I'm just looking and howling for my dad, and he would not come. So I went back downstairs, got him, brought him up, and I must have stared at it for a good 10, 15 minutes, and it just hovered. By the time we got back upstairs, it was gone. So they told me to go to bed, and we didn't think anything of it because, like I said, we lived, about 6 miles from the Air Force Base. And in the morning, my mother pulled me aside and told me not to say anything, but someone else on Piper Road, and it was an adult, had seen it too, and just to keep my mouth shut. And at that time, we lived out in the country. We had no cable, no internet. We didn't even own a VCR at that time. Like I said, it's 1977, 78. So this got my curiosity a little bit. Why would my parents be telling me to just keep a light in the sky and a hovering craft quiet? So then a little bit later down the line, I was sleeping in my bedroom, and I was woken up in the middle of the night, not startled, not scared, and I had a TV tray next to my bed, and I opened my eyes up a little bit to see 2 figures standing next to the TV tray, gray, small, thin, no clothes on. That time I was scared, so I closed my eyes, went back to sleep. By this time now I'm getting really intrigued on what's going on. Started going to school, going to the library, looking up UFOs, aliens, things like that, ordering scholastic books, anything I could find. Like I said, this was a small town. No one talked about anything like this.
So before you go any further into the next part, how tall would you say they were?
Just above the TV tray. They were just small.
So I got a TV tray right here, maybe 2.5, 3 feet, you'd say?
Yep.
Did you see any kinds of things with their face or anything, or just shadows?
They look like what they describe now as the small alien figures. But I was so scared, I was afraid to move.
Like what they call grays now?
Yep. I closed my eyes, and that's the last thing I remember. I went right back to sleep.
All right, you can go ahead on then.
So what happened later in the year, I would say it was summertime, and my father was home again. I was woken up at night with bright lights outside my window and beeping and noise, like honking. And I would look out my window, and I couldn't see a thing. I couldn't see a car, anything. And I could hear my father downstairs saying he was going to go outside to see what was going on. And my mother was telling him, no, you don't know who's out there. You don't know if they had been drinking, if they had weapons. She would not let him go out. My father was not afraid of anything. He had had several tours in Vietnam. He was a rough type character. And you could not tell if it was a car, truck, whatever. It just lit up my entire room. And you could just hear noise. It was very startling. Now, the next day, my mother told us that young kids were going around drinking. They did have weapons in the cars, and they were waiting for someone to come outside, and whoever came outside first, they were going to just blow away. And so these kids supposedly continued up and down the road and did this to several other neighbors. Other neighbors said the same thing happened. Nobody went outside to see what it was. Now, the story I was told, and my mom said it was in the newspaper, that there were young kids, and like I said, they were going to shoot whoever came out. But later, when I hadn't told anybody the story, because this is something that people don't talk about. So a couple years ago, or even this last year, I told Hippie here, we looked it up. We could find no police reports of anybody being arrested, even around that summer or that time or anything. But we did find out that Alpena, Michigan, where we were living, we lived just down from Huron, Michigan, was very, very active for UFO sightings in and out of Oscoda, around the Air Force bases, all in that area. Now, the next year, 1979-80, in March, my stepfather was killed in a semi-accident, and all this activity stopped. So, what we want you guys to determine, since it is Halloween, the stories that I've just told you, are they true? Are they false? Go ahead online, look up Alpena, Michigan, look for yourself of all the UFO sightings, And then come closer to Halloween, we will let you know if this story is true. But I'm going to turn it over to Hippie and let him carry on with some other stories that we witnessed since we moved to where we are now.
Okay, and before I go, just to clear it up, what she was meaning by we did some research on it, when somebody gets arrested, the police have to file a police report, and that gets entered into a database that's public for anyone to see. So if these kids were out there with guns and they got arrested, we would be able to see the police report. We would be able to search that area, that time, and we'd be able to see any police reports from the counties and stuff like that. We didn't find it in any of the counties. So, as I just said, we live in an area pretty close to an Air Force base, and we like to walk late at night because everybody's already gone to bed about that time. So, when would you say this was? About more than 6 months?
Last summer.
Last summer, we're out walking, and we're walking through that same little field out in the back. And I didn't notice at first. My mom points up to it, and she says, "Look at that." So I look up, and it's, would you say red or orange?
It was an orangish red fireball in the sky. And I looked at Hippie, and I said, well, here it comes. I said, if
this was before the 2012 conspiracy, so we thought it was an asteroid, definitely. Going to kill us all.
So we thought they weren't going to say anything, have America, the Earth go, into chaos.
Let us get exploded.
So we just said, if we're going to die, we're going to die. We're going to stand out here and watch it. And as it started getting closer, it wasn't, huge.
It wasn't getting bigger or anything. It was staying the same size.
It completely disappeared.
Well, before it disappeared, it started changing course. It went, because it was coming down at first, and then it went up. And then it went down a little bit more and went up again. And then it just disappeared. So we didn't see anything of it. So, of course, we come back and I tell Fat Man and everything. And that's all about it. Nothing on the news report or anything.
Yep.
A few weeks later, I'm in the car with my mom and my dad, and we're coming back from a carnival that was up the road. And as we're coming back, we look up in the sky, and we see a little triangle, a formation of these three, looks exactly the same, orange or red orbs, and they're not falling or anything, they're flying. So we watch them for how long on the way home? 5 minutes?
5 to 15 minutes.
Right.
We kept looking.
Because then we waited outside of our house watching them, too. Was there anything on the news about that one?
Yeah, people reported from the carnival up and down Peterson, where we are. We have Peterson Road, Peterson Air Force Base, that other people saw it too. You can also go on and Google and check that out for Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs, Colorado, off of Powers Boulevard and Galley. In that area, it was also seen off of Powers Boulevard and Palmer Park. And you can verify what other people say that they saw around that time. This was last year, and it was spring the first time we saw it, and then I'd say just before summer. It was right after prom, I believe, and then they had a carnival up, and other people said that they saw it also.
So, I mean, these, you might consider these spooky, you might not consider them spooky. I think they're a little bit strange. The one that she told definitely freaked me out the first time I heard it. So, I hope you guys stay along for the next 7 days up until 31st.
And if you have any experiences that you would like to share with us and the other viewers, feel free to comment, and we'll try to get back to some of yours. Some of you guys are in Colorado Springs, or you have found proof of some of the stuff we've seen. We'd like to hear it.
But I think that's going to do it for this episode. I'll see you later, guys.